Hello, hi everyone. Um, I'll be sharing with everyone topic number 5 under the subject of GDT 159 typography, uh, and the topic will be under historical appreciation and evolution of typography. So before we go further, I would like to introduce a little bit about myself. I'm Dr. Nisa Amira Muhammad Salim. I'm from College of Creative Arts, UiTM, Puncak Alam. And today, it is important for us to know the course outcome of this particular subject. So, at the end of this course, students should be able to recognize the current trend of typography available in various mediums. Next is to demonstrate creativity and value typography as a source of inspiration in developing graphic and digital media works. And finally is to be able to construct new typography ideas and inventions based on implementation of typography knowledge. So yes, this video will cover 3 subtopics under the topic of historical and evolution of typography. The subtopics are pre-digital type technologies, where under this subtopic there will be a total of 6 highlights that I would share, which sum up the historical and evolution of typography during the pre-digital era. The second one would be digital typography, and the last one would be the present digital of typography today. So if you are ready, we would move on to the first subtopic for today, which is the pre-digital type technologies, where I would be focusing on the first two highlights, which is the handwriting and the calligraphy. So during the pre-digital era, verbal communication was the only type of communication available among the community, and it was believed that during that time, verbal communication was not enough to send a message to the receiver. So the verbal communications were translated into simple drawings, which was then evolved into pictographs, ideographs, which has become a standardized type of communication during the pre-digital era. And later on, handwriting was evolved based on this particular phase of communication. Yeah. So the handwriting basically started from the pictographs. If you can see, pictographs are basically drawings of symbols or abstract symbols which communicate people, activities, or objects. So all these simple drawings or symbols are basically carved on the walls of the caves or on stones to communicate something, to communicate a message. So the community at that particular time, at that particular era, they understood the language, they understood the symbol that they are trying to communicate. So it started with pictographs. As you can see, this is a samples of pictographs. Then all these pictographs are basically evolved into ideographs, then evolved into cuneiform and phonogram. So if you look here, these are samples of cuneiform symbols, which are more triangular tip stylus. So you can see it's more geometric kind of visuals or symbols, and all this actually have its own meaning. And longer words were pronounced by combining ideograph, as in win and do, which later evolved into phonograms. And so you can see that from pictographs, it has the symbols are becoming more unified, and then all the symbols are later on developed and combined to become a better meaning. And it needed a sound, which is phonograms, to make it easier for the community during the pre-digital era to pronounce or to to label a particular message. Yeah. Next, we have the Egyptian innovations, where during the 2400 BC, the Egyptians first used papyrus and reed brushes for writing. So this is where the handwriting starts to become more visible. On papyrus, ink flowed more easily and helped scribes to write more swiftly, resulting in symbols that appeared less angular and more rounded. And hieroglyphs were less complex and were called hieratic script. It is mainly used only for writing religious texts, but was eventually applied to business. Around 500 BC, the script underwent yet another wave of simplification and expanded in use. This term for this was demotic script, script of the people. So this was during the Egyptian innovation. So this is how the Egyptian innovate the evolution of handwriting, from pictographs to ideographs to cuneiform to phonograms, and then they have innovated using materials, using papyrus and ink and paper. Yeah. So next is where the alphabet started to make the appearance. In 1500 BC, 22 phonetically based symbols were also first presented in the ancient Phoenician alphabet. Next, it was widely disseminated in Greece before Alexander the Great expanded it to Egypt, Persia, and India. So very interesting, where we can see the alphabets are becoming more standardized, more uniform, and more. So next, we would see how the importance of handwriting in reproducing Bibles and disseminating the Bibles to the maximum degree possible across the empire, because Christianity was the recognized state religion at that particular era. And during that era also, there was a special lettering, a type of Celtic lettering. I am not sure how to pronounce this, unicials or unitials, which requires writing the letters inside a 1-inch square guideline. So if we see here, we can define that how anatomy of typography has actually started way back, and how during the pre-digital era they are concerned about the anatomy of typography itself, and that before we produce typography, we need a proper guideline so that it will be more uniform, will be more standardized. Yeah. So I will move on to the next slide. Next, we could see how the unitials were now being more relevant, where they introduce large unitials at the beginning of each phrase and lowercase letters made up of consistent portion of the Roman alphabets. So this design evolved, and then in Germany it's more into the Gothic style. So this evolution of lettering styles proceeded to include the script form, which served mostly functional needs. For exceptional texts and books that demand careful attention to each letter, artistic handwriting was specifically developed. So this is an example of how large unitials were used. If you can see the first letter of each phrase, it's larger than the rest. And during the mid 1700, penmanship was introduced. Penmanship was actually a term, or the division of penmanship at that time was the art of writing by hand, which is the handwriting. But the handwriting at that particular era, it was really beautiful. It's very artistically handwritten, and it was only taught in special education classes. And penmanship or master penman were needed at that particular era to replicate official documents, including land deeds, birth and marriage certificates, military commissions, and other legal documents. So before the introduction of printing by Gutenberg, basically everything was handwritten, but the handwriting was done artistically and very beautifully and very formal to communicate or uh, to prepare a formal legal document. Yeah. So next would be the printing era. The printing era, I believe, personally, I believe this is the most significant and most beneficial, and has contributed a lot towards the development and evolution of typography today. And it started in 1400s, where Johann Gutenberg, he invented the movable type press, where letters were invented to sync with the current style of scribes. And as they move on, technology has advanced, more upright letters were designed for printing. After Johann Gutenberg, in 1500s, Robert Grandjean invented typefaces, which highly resembles the concept of script writing. During that era, script writing was very popular, was very in demand, and also it was informed that handwriting experts increase in numbers to share their skills. So thankful to this particular era, where I believe it played a major role in today's evolution of typography. Next, as I mentioned before, where handwriting experts has been increasing, they are sharing their skills in writing beautifully. Calligraphy was introduced. Basically, the word kali in Greek means beautiful, and graphy means writing. So to sum up, calligraphy means beautiful handwriting. It is the skill of creating stunning, artistic, stylistic handwriting or letters using various strokes and brushes. So calligraphy is basically very popular, and if I would like to share about calligraphy, it's gonna be another long video, but I will try and sum up and share with everyone the basic of calligraphy during the particular era. So basically there are four main types of calligraphy. First is the Western, then we have the Eastern, Asian, Islamic, and Southern Asian calligraphy. So we will go to the first one, which is the Western calligraphy. It started around 3000 BC during the Latin writing system, where Latin script calligraphy is the most identifiable in the Western world. Traditionally, most often use a brush, a flat ball, or a round nib pen, which with water-based ink, parchment or paper, and tools, templates, knives, and light boxes for producing straight uniform patterns. So you need a special tool, you need a special material for you to be able to write beautifully using the Western calligraphy style. So each calligraphy has its own style, has its own your own anatomy during that particular time. Next, we move on to the Islamic calligraphy. Islamic calligraphy has developed alongside the religion and the Arabic language. Due to the fact that calligraphy is a language of the spiritual realm, it is regarded as an artistic expression. It was the highest peak during the Ottoman era, and it is a more distinctive contemporary Arabic calligraphy, which is now possible thanks to various changes made possible by the digital age. So Islamic calligraphy does various types of Islamic calligraphy. If you want to go deeper into this type of calligraphy. And each type of Islamic calligraphy has its own uniqueness, and it depends on the calligrapher, um, and it depends on the purpose of writing the calligraphy itself, the message behind it itself, whether it's for artistic purpose, or it's for document purposes, or it's for formal occasions. It depends on the objective of writing the calligraphy itself. So Islamic calligraphy is very beautiful, and has become an artistic expression from the artist itself also today. So next we have Eastern Asian calligraphy, where we can see each dynasty that ruled over China, Korea, and Japan has its own distinct calligraphy methods and aesthetics. The distinctiveness in terms of culture and the significance of the letters make this calligraphy style recognizable. So this is more Eastern Asian calligraphy. Very interesting and very different from Islamic or Western, right? Then we have Then we have Southern Asian calligraphy, where this calligraphy style originated in the regions of Tibet, Nepal, and India, commonly used for variety of secular and Buddhist reasons, starting from the prayer wheels to the letters of Dalai Lama. So I would say that my favorite would be the Southern Asian calligraphy and the Islamic calligraphy, because the Southern Asian calligraphy, if you can see in terms of the anatomy, it's very unified. It's like a repetition of pattern. It's very beautiful. Alright, next we move on to the other highlights under the pre-digital type of technologies. We have I will not read word by word, but I would roughly explain each highlights. We start with the woodblock printing. Woodblock printing was originated from China. It was used firstly on fabrics, mostly on silk, before being used onto paper. This is an example of woodblock printing. And then we move to the arrival of Gutenberg's invention, the movable type letterpress printing, where letterpress printing is a method of relief printing. This method makes use of a printing by press to produce several copies by repeatedly pressing an ink raised surface against sheets or a continuous roll of paper. So Gutenberg, he started experimenting with and investigating various techniques during his time in Strasbourg, which eventually led him to the movable type of printing press. So this is movable type letterpress printing. And then we go to the wooden font molds, then to the continuous casting, then to the phototype setting, where at this particular era, the most significant development in the field of mass production printing presses was phototype setting. And it was first made available in 1949 by the Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Photon Corporation. In this technique, the vaporous material of light takes the place of lead-type molds or slugs. So this is the phototype setting, which was very in demand in 1950s. So this was the starting or the mark of before we move to the digital era. So let's move on to the next topic, which is the next subtopic, which is the digital typography. So during the mid-1980s to 1995, we already acknowledged the digital typography. So in digital typography, basically there are two main concepts. One is the bitmap, which use raster fonts, and the other one is outline, which is more vector fonts. So for the first concept, which is the bitmap raster fonts, bitmap typefaces are data files that have glyphs in the form of pixels. A bitmap font must have numerous sets of fixed size, often merely 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 18, 24, 36, 48, and 72, each and every combination of regular, bold, and italic, because it is not scalable like a vector. So it is more standardized. Yeah, it cannot be scalable like the vector fonts. While the vectors are collections of lines and curves that represent characters mathematically. Without pixelation, they cannot be scaled infinitely. So there are two types of fonts in digital typography. One is raster fonts, another one is vector fonts. So if you can see the format, the bitmap font formats are shown in the slide, and these are basically the two main concepts under the digital typography fonts. Then we move on. So the last subtopic would be more relevant to us today, which is the present digital typography, where I believe the present digital typography today would not happen if without the evolution of typography that I have mentioned earlier. So today the present world has exposed to us how typography has evolved digitally, especially, and how people have experimented typography to become more digital, more kinetic, more experimentable, and more modern to be more relevant along with the technology today. Yeah. So since it was originally used in ancient times, typography has undergone numerous changes. As more cutting-edge technology appeared, typography was given room to develop and was applied into an increasing number of contexts. Typography is no longer just for printing and factories. Graphic designers and anybody else wanting to learn how may now create their own typefaces using programs like FontLab. Designers can now easily produce a large variety of font families and types because to unending tools and technology. So basically, typography has become more individual, where with the technology available today, with the materials available, with the creativity and with the exposure that we have, designers are more exposed, and they are more curious to explore their own types of typography to make their artwork more relevant and to be more unique in that sense, because when there's too many fonts available in the market, when there are too many varieties of fonts or categories of typographies available, sometimes there's no more uniqueness towards it, and because everyone will be downloading the same typography, everyone will be downloading the same font, the same typefaces, and it is the world has opened the space for designers, graphic designers, creative designers, especially typo designers, to explore and to have the ability to create and to innovate their own typography skills. So FontLab is one of the software available. It's one of the softwares. There's various of softwares available today. It's just a matter of being creative and being innovative and taking advantage of the technology today. So next, like I mentioned just now, technology advancements in the computing industry have significantly influenced typography. The need for typography has significantly expanded thanks to the font face tag, a CSS rule that enables users to specify online fonts to display on their web pages, continuing to inventiveness without end. So yes, like I mentioned just now, it won't be long until we learn what the future holds for typography, because type designers are continuously coming up with new strategies to adapt to emerging markets and technologies. New designs continue to appear every day. It will be never ending. Type designers are becoming more bold, more creative and innovative, and I personally could not catch up with the numbers of typography inventions, experiments that's happening in the world today. And I believe that today typography has evolved so much based from the history, based from the evolution, starting from the pictographs until today. We can see how much typography has evolved and has touched our lives, because typography is a very significant part in graphic design, in making our creative works more visible, and the message is clearer with good typography. And basically everything needs typography. And with that, thank you so much, and I hope that with this short video, everyone would be able to have a basic idea of the evolution of typography, the history of typography. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Have a good day.